I'm very privileged to be here. Thank you very much for inviting me to come. I look forward to sharing some information about food nutrition. I do work at the Community Health Center, Windsor Community Health Center too, so you've met Kara and Liz and Aaron, my colleague over in the corner there. Please do visit the table there. There is a specific self-management program that you might be very interested in knowing about. It's called Powerful Tools for Caregivers. And that is a very good self-management program that we offer to anybody in Ontario. So I have been committed to self-management programming for some time, as Mark had said, and the PhD degree did actually get me much more involved in understanding health care transition, or at least application of what we want to do. We learn things in a forum like this. We learn what the research is, we learn about food, we learn about lots of things, and then we go home. And how is that transfer happening? So that's what I'm going to be helping with today. I did begin with the idea here of wanting to be able to discuss the ideas of smart and practical, and then that's the take-home message that we're going to finalize our talk today with feeling nourished, or at least a good skill level on how to do that. The topic of smart and practical ways to eat is a way to consider what's the best way to stay nourished with the course of the condition through the lifespan. PD management requires smart and practical strategies because as an aging person, we do become at higher risk for poor nutrition, weight loss, maybe bone loss, and decreased muscle mass. Though, of course, activities like Kara and Liz demonstrated, we do need to keep the body moving, absolutely. And sometimes people think that because they're aged or less active, that their nutrition needs aren't as high. And in fact, that isn't usually true. Perhaps the caloric intake requirements slightly change, but the protein and the vitamins and minerals really don't, and sometimes even go up. So we're going to talk about that. I'm going to talk about the different aspects of it in this context of being smart. Because the medical conditions change, which means the actions based upon your dietary management will change too. To be smart with management, we want to have you understand your condition and then to match the food to the symptoms that you're experiencing right now. Has anybody experienced that sort of thing, right? Like changes with Parkinson's include changes to your life routines, meal routines, the need for food texture change, and also meal preparation. Has anybody experienced that? So there is definitely a transition. And it's natural, right? It's natural for the body to change and our meal and habits need to change accordingly. So because we know that healthful life habits assist with disease management, it's smart to check in. And that's what we're going to do in the next while together. Check in on how you're doing and what things you might want to work on for yourself. And specific to this talk then is good nutrition has been shown in many scientific studies to slow the progression and reduce cognitive impairment of Parkinson's. So food matters. Good food. I love that I'm placed right before lunch because I'm going to show you lots of pictures of food. So good food is not just about what's on the plate, though. It's about who we eat with. It's how the food gets to the plate, who makes it, how it's made, and the quality of it. People with Parkinson's are at increased risk of poor nutrition because of the increase of metabolic demands of the tremors, the loss of olfactory senses. We know taste and smell can change, and the muscular weaknesses of rigidity can also impact the swallow function. So we're going to cover that off under some discussion around being smart. Did you know that the act of swallowing actually involves up to 300 muscles and neuron activities? So there's a lot going on in the body just to get food from the tongue down through the esophagus. So that criteria just lets us know right off the top that we're at some risk then. And if those nerves, 300 of those activities are impacted, then we may have a diagnosis of dysphagia or dysphagia. Then what happens here is that it's important to match the texture with the food. And dysphagia is a condition that's managed then by varying the food texture and the fluid textures to the swallow. You likely know that, and you may be applying some different over-the-counter products, or maybe you add thickening agents, but dysphagia management is actually well understood and very well managed with good control. It's well understood around the world. There's language that goes along with all the different levels of swallowing ability, as well as the texture modification. So if you were to speak to a speech-language pathologist, or many dietitians are also trained in swallow assessments, you'll always get really good, consistent information there. So food preparation is also perhaps something that comes to mind, with the sensation of smell and taste changing. We want to be a bit chefy perhaps in the kitchen if you like to cook, or your caregivers like to cook. We can consider that. So the loss of smell is associated with parts of the brain function there, and the tendency may be to add salt or sweetness, right? Sugar and salt are very tangible tastes for all of us. This is something that I'm encouraging you to perhaps do the chefy thing and use a cooking manipulation more with aromatics. And aromatics also have a whole botanical impact on health. So when you include things like, in the list there, leeks, onions, carrots, celery, scallions, peppercorns, parsley, thyme, bay leaves, garlic, most of those have been identified as botanical benefits for health as well. So you're not only impacting taste and your flavors profiles, but you're also tantalizing your enzyme functions and health. Other things, bell peppers, fennel, lemongrass, spicy chili peppers, curry. I mean, it goes on and on. We can add flavors when we can to stimulate the saliva action and improve food intake. SMART. So SMART was to have you think about some of the ways that maybe there's a transition in the way that foods are being prepared, but there's also the practical. And the practical is thinking about good nutrition for the body and the brain. And the nutrition factors that I'll be speaking about are very much about brain support. And I love the fact when Cody was talking this morning, he was talking about the body at its molecular level. When we think about food, I was just talking about cooking and being a chef, right? But food is also, and probably primarily, a contribution to your biology. And when we think about nutrition in that very basic thing, it's not as fun. It's more fun to talk about recipes, in my world anyway. But it's very important to consider as we're talking forward about food as a contribution to our cellular matter. So meals and snacks are nutrient packages then. So when you think about food in that context, that you're giving your body an opportunity to work at its maximum with the food that you provide it, you want to provide yourself meals on a regular basis, and snacks too, of course, if that's how it works for you. And in order to allow the foods and nutrients to get into the body so that activities can be supported. Many of you might already know about the MIND diet. So again, many of the things I'll be talking about may be review, but it's a nice check-in morning for you then. It's been shown in many research studies to support brain function and also gut health, one of my favorite topics I will get to. I will talk more about the gut-brain connection in just a few minutes, but let's just take a quick review here of what the MIND diet is. So MIND is an acronym for Mediterranean Diet Intervention for Neurodegenerative Delay. And it's a combination of two of the most well-researched clinical meal patterns in the world. So the Mediterranean diet and the DASH diet have scads and scads of research to support their nutritional benefit and clinical benefit. I love the Mediterranean diet. It's my favorite diet. I think it's just wholesome, and I think it's a wonderful place to start about when you talk about the whole historical development of diet in itself. The Mediterranean diet is simply what people have been eating in that part of the world for thousands of years. And because it's tried and true over time, over millennia, we know that it's good. We know The scientists got involved maybe 100 years ago saying, how come people in this part of the world live longer or live healthier or don't get heart disease? Or any time that we look at the Mediterranean diet and apply it to a disease state, we see that people are better off when they follow that sort of meal planning. And the DASH diet has been very highly established in research in the first world countries where we've slipped off and eaten a lot of salty and sweet foods and a lot more meat products. So that's the foundation of the MIND diet, is taking the best of both meal patterns that have been shown to be so special and then putting it into this sort of context of a diet for neurodegenerative delay. I have included an image of the Mediterranean diet here. It's my favorite image of the Mediterranean diet. You can find all kinds of them on the internet. But this one is really nice. It delineates very clearly in a pyramid there, but it's also been supported and ratified by the European Union and all the health organizations in Europe. It talks about it all sort of broken down into what is most substantial, and of course the bottom of the pyramid being most fundamental. And it includes exercise. So there you can see Liz and Kara there. So very important to be exercising, and we're going to go up. I'm not going to talk any detail of the Mediterranean diet. I'm going to go into more discussion about nutrition overall. But you can see from the images of the food items there, we've got leafy greens, we've got the colorful berries, green tea, some aromatics that I'd mentioned, and fatty fish, olive oil, walnuts. So those are some really great foods for neurodegenerative protection. I'm just going to flash this one up really quick. You might know this as the Canada Food Guide, and yes, it is a Canada Food Guide, but I'm showing it to you here as an image of really what that pyramid might look like on a plate. So this is sort of an overview. I'm not saying that you need to set your plate up this way, because we know otherwise, right? We're going to talk about that too, where to put protein. But as a percentage, half of your diet, if you're eating the MIND diet, would be plant-based. It would be that high in fruits and vegetables. And even the carbohydrate portions there, they are certainly the ones that are high fiber. And the protein food, some nice quality choices there. But certainly, let's get real. The lovely breakfast foods that we've had at our break here, we know we love Danishes and croissant. And so and Mediterranean people no doubt eat those too, right? So let's know that they fit in there, but generally speaking, we're going for the high quality carbohydrates. When we look at food overall, again, sort of imaging back to maybe the Mediterranean diet, we do know that hydration is key. It was along the bottom of that pyramid. Hydration is important for all cells. At this very, very basic level, it provides cells H and 2 oxygen, hydrogen and oxygen. So it is an elemental necessity for the body. And there are things that work against hydration as we age, and also just our habits in life. Why I'm mentioning gastric motility at the top there is because, again, we're trying to work with our body to allow for the gastric system to function. So we know that the action of the intestines can slow, and that's because of the reduced peristalsis. Peristalsis is the terminology for the pulsing of the intestinal tract. So the intestinal tract, there's lots of it in there, right? And as that pulses, it moves food through, and the way it knows to pulse is if the mass is large enough, it's censored on the inside, and it feels the bulk, and it moves it along. And that bulk is formed by fluid-boosted fibers. So if you don't have enough fluid, everybody's supposed to be taking a drink. You're supposed to feel thirsty about now. So when you do take those fluid drinks, that helps the bulk of the intestine touch the sides of the intestine, and then it signals to move things through. If you don't have enough water, you don't have enough peristalsis, and constipation might be a result. So That's a really important point. What impacts thirst? Well, thirst is impacted by sweet and by salt as well. So again, following the MIND diet, it's going to be lower in sugar and lower in salt. And if hydration seems to be a bit of a challenge, then you might want to put aside a pitcher or a water bottle on a counter in the fridge or something, sort of mark down what you're eating or drinking per day, because the sensation of thirst can also reduce with age. So you might need sort of a physical reminder to yourself to drink enough. How many times have I heard somebody say to me, yeah, but I don't want to, if I drink too much, I might have to go to the bathroom too often. A real problem. I understand the challenge there. I do. I empathize with that, but I just want to encourage you to continue the hydration, even though that may be a challenge to you at times. Again, we know that we need to keep active, so a trip to the bathroom is also an opportunity for using your limbs. Caffeinated beverages is just something to touch point here. There has been a lot of discussion in the literature, the research about caffeine. Is it good? Is it bad? You'll read both. And in terms of Parkinson's disease, especially as well. So the idea here is that a little bit of caffeine can get a little bit of pep going. That's always a good thing, a little bit of pep, right? A lot of us depend on that. It's been part of your life. It's a pleasurable time in the morning. It's something you look forward to. It's part of your daily routine. And life is enjoyable. It's meant to be. So therefore, it has a place. Too much caffeine can cause a greater urination, which means more trips to the bathroom, right? But overall, caffeinated beverages, tea and coffee, are included in your total fluid intake of, what, 1.5 to 2 liters a day? And that's fluid overall, not just water. So you don't have to drink 2 liters of water. But you do need to have 1.5 to 2 liters of fluid overall, okay? That's pretty rough, but that's the general recommendation. So moving through the guide, the way we might think about food, the way a dietitian thinks about food, is by food type, right? So we have grain foods. Grain foods are really important. Mention gastric motility again. So I'm really concerned about that. I want your grains to swell and hydrate with the water that you're drinking so that we have continued gastric motility. Carbohydrates are energy foods, very important for the overall health of your body. The question about sweets and savory treats, just the idea there that yes, again, the part of your life, but if you want to benefit yourself according to the MIND diet, you do emphasize whole grains and high fiber options. Just a little point here about carbohydrates. Like rice. So rice is an energy food, high fiber one. It's a really good food. But there might be a time when it becomes a little bit more of a challenge to eat. Rice has got a lot, it's small and it can sort of jump off the tongue in different directions. So it's harder to create that needed bolus. I talked earlier about the importance of the swallow. So if the rice can't be chewed, it can't be sort of brought into that bolus to make this nice little shape that goes into the pharynx and then can go down into the tubes, then you want to be careful about rice, as an example, over time. When we're thinking about carbohydrate foods, those are the ones that form some mush. You want to make sure that they're ones that you can form a nice bolus to swallow. Fruits and vegetables is half of the plate, right? It's half of what you're eating each day. And that's a challenge. I know that. I think every time I create a meal for myself, I say, okay, well, where can I add my fruit or vegetable? And it takes some thought. It's practice, but we get there. So fruits and vegetables then, what do they offer? Fiber. Fiber with your fluid, and also they offer a host of things. That's why they're so important. There's so many things that fruits and vegetables offer to your body that these few words that I have are just, doesn't really represent. So metabolic enzymes, we've heard that word this morning already from Cody. We know that, again, at the molecular level, the vitamins and minerals that we're eating are helping the pathway pathways, enzymic pathways that are very, very important for all of the functions in your body. And vitamins and minerals the same. So some of the vitamins and minerals form those ideas. But specifically, when we're talking about essential nutrients, I wanted to highlight B vitamins, vitamin D, and magnesium. So there's an interest in these vitamins because of their role in raising dopamine. So dopamine, of course, is that element that we're trying to raise with the medication of levodopa. So we know that dopamine is something we want to bring up. So we want that. So the idea that if we can eat foods, or if there are elements in our food supply that we chew that have things that raise our dopamine, let's talk about those. So B vitamins are available pretty widely across the food that we eat, very much in the green leafies. The green leafies are just always big. Anything with color has quite a bit of vitamins in it. And B5 and B6 are specific to dopamine production, as well as vitamin D. Vitamin D is a star nutrient. Vitamin D is something that Canadians are always at risk of not having enough of. You may have heard this story. I'll tell you again, that vitamin D is created in our skin based upon the sunlight hitting it. We know we're sometimes challenged in that in Canada. Actually, any country in the northern hemisphere, and even in the southern hemisphere, like Australia, whenever you have at least 6 months of what we call winter, you're at risk of having low vitamin D. So most Canadians are recommended to have at least 2,000 IUs, international units. That's the way they usually come over the counter. You'll see vitamin D, 2,000 international units. So if there's anything you take away from today, I recommend everybody pick up some vitamin D. Even though sun is coming and we know the weather's changing, it's a high-risk nutrient. And when a person is low in vitamin D, there's just you don't even really notice it. And that's the one thing about nutrition. It's subtle. When you're fully nourished and fully vitaminized, you feel like $1,000,000. But there's a slow slide. And you may have found this over the course of your life, that when you're eating really well, you feel good. And then you stop eating so well for a lot of different reasons, and you don't feel so good. And it's subtle. Vitamin D is one of those things. When you get enough of it, you do feel better. You just feel a bit more perked. Omega-3 fatty acids are also very important for dopamine rising, but it's not on this page. We're going to talk about omega-3 fatty acids in just a little bit. You might have heard about magnesium as being, it's one of those new superstars that's getting a lot of attention in the media as well. Magnesium is a dopamine riser, but it's also known to help the digestive tract as well. Foods high in magnesium are spinach, Swiss chard, avocados, bananas, potatoes, and nuts. So a wide variety there. You probably eat one of those things. So magnesium is likely covered. I love to tell people that magnesium is also high in chocolate. So in a 1 ounce serving of chocolate of 85%, like a high quality cocoa, you're going to get some nice magnesium, equal to half a cup of cooked spinach. So chocolate's got something to offer here, guys. And what I like to do is I like to make myself some homemade cocoa, just like my grandma used to make me, right? You take the cocoa powder, you know it's, high quality chocolate, it's cocoa, and put some nice honey in, mix it with some water, a bit of milk if you like, and it just makes a lovely hot cuppa. So there's a magnesium skill for you. So fruits and vegetables also offer us antioxidants. Antioxidants are another word that we hear a lot about these days, but again, back to Cody's point, how important it is to support the body at the molecular level. So antioxidants are what is fighting oxidants, antioxidants. So oxidation at the cellular level is something that does happen naturally. The mitochondria is always rebirthing itself, and it wants to always function well. But because of these oxidants that are being created, we need to counteract those and take them away. We want to add antioxidants into our diet, fruits and vegetables. So that's a really, really good high source of antioxidants. And vitamin D, again, I said star nutrient, is a very powerful antioxidant, as is vitamin C. We hear a lot about vitamin C as well. And I threw in the word flavonoids because it's one, I like it because it's mentioned there in the MIND diet, right? It's mentioned there in the Mediterranean diet according to the tippity top. You might have noticed a little glass of wine at the top. So wine has flavonoids in it. So does grapes. And in Canada, it's certainly, for us, I think for locally, it's really nice to know that our local food supply, blueberries and cranberries, are also really high in antioxidants. So anytime you can add cranberries and blueberries to your diet in Ontario, we're supporting local growers as well as giving yourself some beautiful flavonoids. Okay, it was going to happen, wasn't it? We are going to talk about protein. Let's talk about this. Protein is crucial, very important. We know it's fundamental at the cellular level, again, spoken about from Cody. So the enzyme functions, and we get protein from all sources. We get it from many, many foods, and there are proteins that happen naturally in a lot of vegetables as well. But because vegetables aren't a high source of protein, we don't talk about them in that way. We talk about food groups as their primary provision to the body. So these are the ones. Meat and poultry, fish, seafood, legumes, lentils, seeds and nuts, dairy foods. Those are the foods that we consider as protein foods. I'm just going to break this down a little bit. So meat and poultry, fish and seafood, animal, pesca, they're animal and fish sources of protein. When we're eating that kind of food, we're eating a very high quality protein. We're eating ounce per ounce. Any one of those types of protein foods are going to give you 7 grams per ounce. So if anybody wants to throw down some numbers, here's an opportunity for you. It's not a lot of math, but I'm going to tell you a little bit. So 7 grams of protein per ounce. That means if you sit down at dinner to have your protein at the end of the day, you are having maybe what? 3 to 4 ounces a serving. Some of us have more than that. 21, 28, maybe 30 grams of protein in one serving. The average woman needs about 50 grams a day. The average man needs about 60 grams a day of protein. So not a lot, right? Again, remembering that some of the hype we hear about protein comes from things like the ketogenic diet, and there's all kinds of discussion about the importance of protein, and we don't eat enough protein, and protein. Yes, protein is crucial, but when we really look at the nitty-gritty, 50 or 60 grams a day is not a lot. So that's why we can put it at the end of the day, and I'm going to show you some ways to do that. So meat, poultry, fish, and seafood, 7 grams per ounce. Legumes and lentils, in 1 cup, you get 7 grams. So again, looking at it, it's high, but you don't sit down to eat a cup of chickpeas. Not usually. I mean, maybe some people do. Even hummus wouldn't have, a cup of hummus wouldn't have that kind of quantity because you've got lots of other things in it. And beans, chickpeas, things like that are often what you find as an addition to. Maybe they're in a salad, maybe they're in a soup. So you're not eating a whole cup. So they're a good source of protein when you measure them off like that, but bite for bite, they're not as high a source as the other ones at the top of the list. Nuts and seeds, yeah, high in protein, also high in some really healthy fats, omega-3 fats. But again, we don't sit and eat a cup of nuts. Well, maybe some do, but not usually recommended because, again, they're high in oil. You don't want to do that, but they're good quality foods for sure. And then dairy foods. Dairy foods for 1 cup of milk has 4 grams of protein. So when you look at that food, again, you might drink a cup of milk, but it does have a lot less bang for your buck, as does the higher protein foods. So that's just a distribution. When we think about that, you can see that it's much more important to keep the meat, poultry, fish, and seafood at the end of the day. And if you have some, few legumes in your salad at lunch or a little bit of dairy with breakfast, it's not quite as crucial, but because it's not as high in protein as the other foods. Another thing I like about this list is that it corresponds again back to the MIND diet, where the fish, seafood, legumes, and lentils are right there. They're right there providing all of the proteins that are recommended in the MIND diet. Just a little bit of research, just because you may have read it. You know, there is some idea that the way we calculate protein for a person is 0.8 times your ideal body weight in kilograms. If anybody wanted to write that down, it doesn't matter to me that you do. I'm just saying that some of you might be tracking this. So that averages out to that 60 for men and 50 for women that I was talking about. Then some of the research has said as little as 0.05 per kilogram. If you read that, I just wanted to mention it. It's still recommended that you go for the 0.8 overall, just because you do need enough protein. Healthy dietary fats, really important to consider here. Saturated fats are in those two meats at the top, right? I showed you that the poultry and the meat, we know if we're choosing lower fat, leaner cuts is always a better thing, because saturated fat provides oxygenation. It's inflammatory to the body, where omega-3 fatty acids are anti-inflammatory. The high source of omega-3 fatty acids is in fatty fish. We know salmon and mackerel and sardines. Very good sources of omega-3. Flaxseed, that's ground as well, if you're a vegetarian. So when we're talking about healthy dietary fats, we want to make sure that you're leaning towards fats that are liquid at room temperature. Olive oil is always the star because it's a type of oil that has omega-3 as well as other types of healthy fats as well. So liquid fats are best for cooking. Brain food. Research on the gut-brain connection is quite important to discuss in its infancy here, because what we know now is the gut, all of that wonderful stuff going on in your digestion is actually talking back to your brain. So the neurons have cousins in the intestinal tract in the stomach called glia cells, and they talk back and forth. So the happier your stomach health is, the better your mental health is. And this has been actually discovered by a science called neuropsychology. So neuropsychiatrists will actually recommend dietary corrections for people so that they may even improve their conditions such as schizophrenia or bipolar disorder. So food is really important for clinical control of more than one disease, many different things. Neurons require nourishment. We want to feed the brain. Brain is what we're protecting with our diet. And I wanted to mention as well the B12 and confusion connection, because sometimes if a person is eating less meat, which may be something that is being a part of your lifestyle, right? Because if you're trying to eat less meat, or at least protein, maybe you're leaving out meat, where meat actually has a really high level of B12, and so does some leafy greens. But B12 is created in your stomach. And as we age, we lose a coenzyme to create that. So people naturally go down in B12 with age. So you want to make sure that you're getting quality sources of it. So you do want to include some leafy greens and some meat if you can. You can also take an oral supplement for B12, and sometimes people even get B12 injections into their bodies. But another key point then, so walking away from our talk today, if you feel that there may be some cognitive decline and you know that you're not eating a good quality diet, you may want to talk to the doctor about a B12 test. There's a simple blood test. Get the vitamin D tested too at the same time, or just simply start taking a B12 or multivitamin with B12 in it. It leads the conversation to the microbiome. This is such exciting science right now. And as I said, even in the psychiatry world, we're talking about the importance of maintaining the gut microbiota. So microbiome is the place where all that great bacteria that you've been growing because you've been eating fiber and eating nice healthy foods, the bacteria in your body grow and thrive. And they create this beautiful environment for the glia cells, the cousins to the neurons, and they're talking to your brain. So your body in your gut is talking to your neuron cousins who talk to your brain. It's just a beautiful system. I love it. And we support our microbiome with healthy eating, with all the foods that I've been talking about support the microbiome. Because, again, fiber is where the prebiotics stand. So prebiotics are what's required for probiotic and healthy bacteria to grow. Prebiotics are the nest of beautiful fibers that your intestine is digesting, and all those great bacteria grow and keep your glia cells happy. I've included a couple of days worth of a meal idea. So very quickly, I know I can't believe the time speed here. There's 2 examples, and you do, of course, receive this as a handout. But the idea of providing this menu plan was to show how it can be done. And if you just want to skip right on to the dinner there, you see fast fish and fresh herb veggie packets, a whole wheat roll, and rice pudding. And I intentionally included rice pudding so that you can see that when cooked into that format where it's nice and gooey, and that the bolus could be formed and the swallow could be concise, is a nice way to include it. You know, because rice is a nice food. And you can see also that as a dessert, because we do like sweets, don't we? It's a dessert that has protein in it, because if you've ever made rice pudding, you know it has milk and eggs. So it's a higher protein food at the end of the day. But the beginning of the day, you've got a smoothie with lots of fruits in it. You've got apples in a muffin. You've got fresh fruit. You've got a beautiful vegetable soup. You've got a pasta salad, maybe with some more vegetables into it. So you've got this very high vegetable matter through the day, and then you've got your high protein at night. You've provided here a new idea. Breakfast, again, another sort of smoothie. Blueberries, love those blueberries. Put those into a high fiber muffin. Maybe a nice snack. A beautiful squash soup with lots of flavor, right? It's got a little bit of spice to it to tantalize the taste buds. Maybe some whole grain toast. And a vegetable lasagna with chicken in it, or a chicken vegetable lasagna, depending on how you like to look at it. A nice fresh green salad with maybe baby kale, some spinach, right? Get those leafy greens. Maybe some ice cream, gelato, right? Because again, a higher protein dessert, and maybe hummus and dippers. That might sound a lot of food, but there's some good examples of how the meal can cascade through the day, keeping most of your protein at the end of it. Those are all recipes that I've provided to you. You'll receive this information as well, a website with the recipes that'll all be clickable and available to you. So all of this leads us to Nourished. Nourished in your home. What we want for you is to be able to sustain a change of dietary import. Any change requires a plan. So I did provide to you on your table, or has been provided to you on your table, and will be provided to you by email, a little plan there. We want you to be nourished in your home, your way, and any plan that you create for yourself needs to follow the criteria of being specific, measurable, achievable, realistic, and timely. Some of you might know this is a SMART goal. But the idea here is that whatever you create for yourself, you want it to be real. Something real for you today. We're going to talk about that in just a second. What will you change? Would you change a food habit? Would you change a food type? Would you add a new food? Because the steps for change for PD self-management is going to be a one step at a time type of thing, right? You're going to choose one way to change. Is it going to be a SMART or practical goal? So is there something that was said in either one of those components that piqued your interest? What change are you going to do now, today? What do you want to think about? And then what is the one change that can make it for you? Because every change matters. The smallest step makes a big step in your life. This is the form that may be available to you. I'm not sure how many are on the table, but there are some. You don't even really need it. We can quickly go through it because you will get this for your homework. Did you know you're getting homework today? But ways to change, either like in a SMART way or in a practical way or in a nourished way. And I've got it broken down there for you, what you might like to change. And you choose your thing. So you heard me say something that went, yeah, I need to do that. Maybe it was something like changing when you're taking your levodopa. Maybe it's something to do with adding fats or getting some recipe ideas. or maybe it's something about adding some microbiotic foods. And these are some of the websites that are available to you, again, for more information. And I thank you very much.